What would you do if your children were erased from history with a single stroke of a pen? Imagine waking up to find that the names of your son and daughter, your pride, your legacy, your very flesh and blood, had been quietly removed from the books of destiny. No announcement of celebration, no royal parade, no grand speeches to honor them. Instead, just one icy declaration: they no longer count. They no longer exist in the line of succession. They are invisible, forgotten. That's exactly what just happened with Archie and Lilibet, and it all unfolded after a tense, almost secretive meeting between King Charles and Prince Harry at Clarence House in London. And it's sending shockwaves across the globe. Now pause for a moment. Why now? Why after months of silence? Just when it seemed the royal family was trying to step away from chaos, did King Charles drop this royal bombshell? Was it a move of desperation, a cold calculation, or something more personal? Perhaps even revenge masked as protocol? We have to ask the question, is this about protecting the monarchy's survival or punishing Harry and Meghan once and for all? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. This story isn't just another royal headline. It isn't just a family spat or some bureaucratic shuffle of names on a dusty parchment. No, this is a direct strike at the heart of Harry's identity as a father and a son. This is the monarchy drawing a line in the sand. And here's the kicker. Charles didn't just make a decision. He made a declaration that could change the shape of the monarchy forever. Think about this. Archie and Lilibet were once celebrated as the symbols of modernity, the royal children who would embody diversity, progress, and the future of the monarchy in the 21st century. They were painted as the fresh chapter after a turbulent past. And yet, in just one calculated move, King Charles wiped their names off the royal chessboard. Gone. Erased. And what's worse, it wasn't just about them. It was about making a statement to the world. A statement that screams, this monarchy does not bend. Let me ask you, how does a grandfather do this to his own grandchildren? How does a man, who once held tiny Archie in his arms, stand before the world and declare, these children will never wear the crown? Is this strength, or is it cruelty? The answer depends on where you stand. And that's what makes this story so electrifying, so deeply unsettling. The setting of this drama couldn't have been more symbolic. Clarence House, a residence tied to Charles's identity, a home filled with portraits, history, echoes of generations past. And there, within those walls, Charles and Harry sat face to face. No Meghan, no children, just father and son. But was it really a reunion? Or was it an ambush disguised as reconciliation? Sources whisper of tension, of silences so sharp they could slice through glass. Harry, the prodigal son, stepping once again into the lion's den. Charles, the monarch torn between duty and blood. But make no mistake, this wasn't a warm family moment. This was a prelude to erasure. Now here's where things get chilling. The decision wasn't made in that room alone. Insiders claim drafts of the announcement had been circulating for weeks. Advisors, aides, even senior royals like Princess and Prince William allegedly weighed in. Imagine that, your children's future debated like items on an agenda, and then sealed with royal authority. Cold, calculated, irreversible. Let's not forget, this isn't the first time royal children have been erased from succession. History is filled with ghosts, heirs cast aside for politics, for scandal, for survival. Edward VIII's line vanished when he chose love over crown. Prince Michael of Kent's place shifted due to marriage. Eve in herself, the Queen's only daughter, was pushed down the list despite her tireless service. But Archie and Lilibet? Their crime? Simply being born to parents who refused to play by the rules of the monarchy. That's the tragedy, the irony, the gut punch of this moment. And the timing. Oh, the timing. Why strike now? Why after a period when Harry and Meghan were quietly building lives in California, when public focus had drifted elsewhere? Was this Charles's way of reasserting dominance after whispers of illness and fragility? Was it William's influence, tightening the grip on the crown's future? Or perhaps it was about silencing Meghan, ensuring her children never stand as symbols of power? Each possibility is darker than the last, and yet each holds a kernel of truth. Let's address the emotional fallout. Meghan, a woman who once said titles didn't matter, that she wanted her children to be free. And yet, When the blow landed, insiders claim her reaction was volcanic. Reports describe slammed doors, furious calls, and a sense of betrayal that cut deeper than any media headline could. Because here's the contradiction: titles don't matter until they're ripped away. Then suddenly, the world sees the humiliation, the rejection, the message that Archie and Lilibet were never truly accepted, never truly royal. And Harry, oh Harry, a man who has fought to carve his own path, but always carried the weight of being Diana's son, William's brother, Charles's spare. To see his children struck from the line, it wasn't just politics. It was personal annihilation. Imagine the ghost of Diana looking down, seeing her grandchildren stripped of the destiny she once dreamed her sons would fulfill. Can you picture Harry's heartbreak in that moment? The anger? The disbelief? And yet, even as his world crumbled, whispers suggest he was already planning his countermove. But we'll come to that later. For now, let's linger on the monarchy's cold explanation. Charles's justification was as brutal as it was simple. Archie and Lilibet are non-working royals, and therefore have no role in the future of the crown. But here's the twist: neither do many others who remain on the list. Beatrice, Eugenie, even Zara Tyndall. None of them are working royals, yet their names remain untouched. So why single out Harry's children? Why now? Is this equality, or is it vengeance cloaked in protocol? The answer is murkier than the official statement suggests. And then there's William, the heir to the throne, the man who has long stood as Charles's steady shadow. His reaction was telling. Publicly, he sided with his father. Privately, rumors swirl of strategic calculation. Supporting Charles now strengthens his claim, ensures the crown passes without complication. But at what cost to his relationship with Harry? Could this be the final nail in the coffin of the brothers' bond? Or is William secretly haunted by what this decision will mean for the monarchy's image in decades to come? You see, this isn't just about two children. This is about power, legacy, and the future of an institution already teetering on the edge of relevance. By erasing Archie and Lilibet, Charles sent a message to the world. We will not bend, not even for blood. But here's the twist. By doing so, he may have unleashed a storm far greater than he anticipated. Because when you erase names from history, sometimes those names become louder than ever. And that's exactly where this story takes its darkest turn. The fallout is only just beginning. Meghan's allies in Hollywood are stirring. Harry is weighing moves that could shatter the palace even further. Global media is circling like vultures, hungry for every scrap of drama. And in the quiet halls of Clarence House, Charles may already be wondering if his bold stroke of power will prove his undoing. But what comes next isn't just about palace politics. It's about survival. It's about whether the monarchy, in its desperate bid to appear strong, has just signed its own death warrant. Because what happened at Clarence House wasn't just a family feud, it was a declaration of war. And yet, this is only the beginning. Because the moment the announcement hit the airwaves, another truth began to surface. A truth no one saw coming. A truth that could turn this entire saga on its head. It wasn't just another father-son meeting. It was a moment laced with centuries of royal weight, a silent confrontation that had the power to reshape the very fabric of the monarchy. Clarence House, usually a sanctuary of tradition and carefully controlled appearances, became the stage for one of the most consequential reunions in recent royal history. Prince Harry, a strange son of the king, walked through the doors not as a favored child returning home, but as an outsider stepping into the lion's den. The air was heavy with tension, thick enough to choke on. And behind those closed doors, everything changed. But let's rewind and set the scene. Why Clarence House? Why now? Clarence House isn't just any residence. It's where Charles has shaped his public and private life for decades. It's a fortress of control, a place where strategy is drawn up and history has been quietly written. By summoning Harry there, Charles made a statement before a single word was even spoken. This would not be a negotiation on neutral ground. This was Charles's territory, his domain, his battlefield. Witnesses report that Harry arrived visibly tense. Shoulders squared, jaw tight, his steps quick yet cautious. He hadn't been seen entering Buckingham Palace. He hadn't been spotted at Windsor. No, he was funneled straight into Clarence House, away from the public gaze, away from Meghan, away from his children. A deliberate isolation. Can you imagine the feeling? Walking into your father's home knowing every word you say could be twisted, weaponized, used against you? Now picture Charles, a king who has spent his life waiting, maneuvering, adjusting, finally sitting on the throne only to find his reign overshadowed by scandal, illness rumors, and the never-ending drama of his younger son. The meeting wasn't warm. There was no fatherly embrace, no sentimental reunion. Instead, the silence carried the weight of decades, of Diana's ghost, of tabloid wars, of explosive interviews and memoirs. Two men, bound by blood yet divided by bitterness, sat across from each other in a room filled with portraits of ancestors who never would have tolerated such rebellion. But was this meeting ever really about reconciliation? Or was Harry walking into an ambush disguised as a private talk? Reports suggest Charles was prepared, rehearsed even. Advisors had briefed him. Drafts of statements had already been drawn up. The reunion wasn't spontaneous. It was calculated. And here's where it gets more chilling. Some insiders believe Harry was lured in with the promise of dialogue, only to discover he was already cornered. Imagine sitting across from your father as he quietly signals that your children's futures are about to be rewritten, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Let's talk about the atmosphere. Royal watchers describe Clarence House on that day as unusually fortified. Staff moved briskly. Security seemed heightened, the kind of quiet intensity that precedes something monumental. Harry, perhaps sensing it, kept his tone measured, but his body language betrayed unease. Every twitch, every glance at the ornate furniture was a silent scream of discomfort. Charles, on the other hand, sat stiffly, embodying the monarchy itself, unmovable, unyielding, prepared to deliver a verdict that would shake the world. And make no mistake, this wasn't just a father informing a son of bad news. This was a king addressing a subject, a monarch asserting dominance. The power imbalance couldn't have been clearer. Harry, stripped of his royal role, sat not as a prince in equal standing, but as a petitioner, a visitor, a man cut adrift. The symbolism was crushing. But what exactly was said? Eyewitnesses may never know the full transcript, but leaks have painted a picture. Charles allegedly spoke in cold, formal tones, referring to the institution more than to family. He emphasized duty. He emphasized the survival of the monarchy. And, most strikingly, he reportedly used the phrase non-working royals with surgical precision, as though Harry's children could be filed away like irrelevant paperwork. Can you imagine hearing your children dismissed as footnotes in royal history? Harry's reaction, insiders suggest, was a mixture of disbelief and rage. His eyes narrowed, his voice raised, the emotional storm of a man betrayed not just as a prince, but as a father. How could Charles, his own father, strip Archie and Lilibet of their place in the line of succession? Was this not punishment disguised as policy? Was this not vengeance wrapped in protocol? And yet, Charles did not flinch. He sat in silence as Harry's voice broke. He did not move when Harry demanded answers. He did not soften when the name Diana was invoked, as if her spirit might sway him. No, Charles was resolute, determined to draw the line once and for all. For him, this wasn't just about Harry. It was about protecting the monarchy from what he saw as external threats: Hollywood, American influence, media warfare. And, tragically, the pawns in this battle were two innocent children. The walls of Clarence House, adorned with oil paintings of kings and queens past, seemed to echo with judgment. They had seen centuries of betrayal, of power plays, of heirs cast aside. Harry may have thought his family's modern story was different, but history has a cruel way of repeating itself. And in that moment, he became just another son at odds with a crown that will always put survival above sentiment. But here's the twist. Harry wasn't entirely unprepared. Whispers suggest he arrived knowing this might happen, that Meghan had warned him. Some say he carried notes, reminders of arguments he might make. Yet no preparation could shield him from the cold finality of Charles's tone. The king wasn't asking for input. He was declaring reality. And Harry, for all his fiery words, found himself powerless in the face of centuries-old authority. So what does this mean? What does it say about the monarchy that a grandfather can look his son in the eye and erase his grandchildren's royal future without hesitation? Is this the strength of an institution determined to survive, or the cruelty of a family consumed by its own legacy? And more importantly, what does this mean for Harry's next move? Because make no mistake, he will not take this lying down. The meeting at Clarence House ended as coldly as it began. No hugs, no promises, just Harry walking out of those grand doors, shoulders heavier than when he entered, eyes burning with the knowledge that his children had just been written out of history. Clarence House, once a symbol of home, had become the stage of betrayal. But here's the part no one expected. This wasn't just about Archie and Lilibet. This was about something bigger, something brewing beneath the surface of the monarchy itself. Because while Harry left in devastation, behind those same doors, advisors were already preparing the next step. And that step would reveal that this shocking announcement was not a spur-of-the-moment decision, but part of a much larger plan. Hours before Harry even stepped into Clarence House, something was already unfolding behind the palace walls. Imagine a war room, not with maps of battlefields, but with documents, advisors, and whispers that could alter the monarchy's very core. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision by a father confronting his son. No, by the time Harry sat down with Charles, the wheels of power had been turning for weeks. The palace had been drafting, redrafting, and strategizing, preparing to unleash a statement so shocking it would reverberate through history. Here's the chilling part. Insiders say the announcement that erased Archie and Lilibet from the line of succession was written long before the so-called reunion. Yes, while the world believed Charles was preparing for reconciliation, his aides were finalizing the very words that would cut Harry's children out of the monarchy. It raises the question, was the reunion itself nothing more than a stage play, a prelude to humiliation? Now, think about the people inside that room of strategists. Not just Charles, not just Camilla. No, this went wider. Princess and William, senior advisors, each reportedly played a part in shaping the language. Advisors weighed the political fallout and allegedly urged caution. William emphasized clarity, and Charles himself signed off on the tone. Firm, unbending, clinical. The monarchy, in their eyes, could no longer afford ambiguity. This was not family business. This was an institutional decision. Cold, brutal, strategic. Let me ask you, how would you feel knowing your children's fate was decided around a table like items on a meeting agenda? No emotion, no hesitation, just bullet points and signatures. For Harry, it must have felt like betrayal layered on betrayal. Not only was the decision made without him, but it was choreographed, rehearsed, and finalized as though his children were pawns in a political chess game. And here's where it gets darker. Reports suggest that, in drafts circulated among palace insiders, the wording was even harsher than what the world eventually saw. Early versions, we're told, outright labeled Archie and Lilibet irrelevant to the crown's future. Can you imagine if those words had been published? Advisors softened the blow at the last moment, disguising cruelty in polished phrases like non-working royals. But the intent was clear. These children were being erased, and there was no room for negotiation. But why the secrecy? Why weren't Harry and Meghan warned sooner? The answer lies in control. The palace wanted to time the announcement for maximum impact. Hours after Harry's visit, when the world would speculate about father and son talking reconciliation, only to be hit with a royal thunderclap. It wasn't just about removing names from a list. It was about controlling the narrative, about showing the world, and Harry himself, that the monarchy acts on its own terms, not his. Let's not forget Camilla's shadow in this. Rumors swirl that she pushed Charles to act decisively, to cut ties before Harry and Meghan could make another damaging move. And William? His role is equally fascinating. Publicly, he remained silent. But behind closed doors, sources claim he agreed wholeheartedly, believing that allowing Archie and Lilibet to remain in the line would only invite chaos down the road. Was this duty? Or was this the final twist of the knife in a brotherly feud that may never heal? The palace machine is ruthless when it chooses to be. Documents are drafted. Press offices are prepped. Media allies are quietly tipped off. It's a dance of power, executed with precision. And in this case, the strategy was twofold. Eliminate uncertainty in the line of succession and send a message to Harry and Meghan. That message? You may have built a life in California. You may have your Netflix deals and Hollywood friends. But in this house, our house, you no longer matter. Ask yourself, what's more painful? To lose something you never wanted, or to have it ripped away in a way that makes the entire world watch your humiliation. Meghan once said titles didn't matter. She once spoke of freedom over formality. But when the erasure came, it wasn't just about titles. It was about legitimacy, about identity, about her children being told, publicly, that they are outsiders in the very family whose blood runs through their veins. That pain cuts deeper than any tabloid headline. And let's not pretend this was only about children. No, this was about the institution's survival. Charles and William, Camilla, they weren't merely thinking of Harry's kids. They were thinking of the monarchy's image, its finances, its future in a world that questions whether kings and queens should exist at all. Archie and Lilibet were not seen as family. They were seen as liabilities. And liabilities, in the royal playbook, are erased before they can become threats. But here's the irony. By trying to secure the crown's future, Charles may have ignited the very storm he hoped to avoid. Because history tells us one thing: the louder you try to silence someone, the louder their name echoes through time. Archie and Lilibet may have been struck from the line, but in doing so, the monarchy made them symbols. Symbols of rejection, symbols of cruelty, symbols of a family that eats its own to survive. And yet, the palace wasn't finished. This announcement, as devastating as it was only part one of the plan. Insiders whisper of additional steps, subtle, incremental, designed to further isolate Harry and Meghan from the crown. Clarence House was just the beginning. What came next would not only blindside the Sussexes, but send shockwaves through the monarchy itself. Because as cold as the announcement was, the justification was colder still. And when the world heard the reasoning behind Charles's decision, the backlash was as fierce as it was inevitable. The royal family didn't whisper. They didn't hint. They didn't leave room for speculation. No, when the moment came, the announcement hit like a thunderclap. With calculated precision, the palace released the statement that would send shockwaves across the globe. Archie Harrison Mountbatten-Windsor and Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor, children of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, had been removed from the royal line of succession. Their names, once inscribed in history, were erased with chilling finality. Imagine the coldness of the words. No warmth, no sentiment, no grandfatherly affection bleeding through the page. Just an official declaration drafted by aides, vetted by lawyers, and delivered to the press as if it were another bureaucratic update. It wasn't spoken with trembling voice or softened by compassion. It was typed, printed, stamped, and released like a verdict from a court that never allowed an appeal. And here's the kicker. The announcement didn't just land in the UK. Within minutes, it was flashing across news screens in America, trending on social media worldwide, exploding onto front pages from London to Los Angeles. The entire world was watching as two innocent children, ages 5 and 3, were stripped of something they never asked for, never fully understood, but were always destined to inherit. Can you feel the cruelty in that? Can you sense the weight of an institution placing its survival above blood? But let's dig into how the announcement was framed. The language was crafted with surgical precision. It emphasized clarity, continuity, and the importance of working royals in shaping the monarchy's future. Cold phrases designed to sound neutral but loaded with venom. Nowhere did it mention Archie and Lilibet by name. Nowhere did it express regret or sorrow. Instead, it reduced them to shadows in the background of a monarchy determined to move forward without them. Now, I have to ask you, was this truly about protocol, or was this about punishment? After all, other non-working royals remain in the line. Princess Beatrice, Princess Eugenie, even Zara Tindall, though far down the list, retains her place. None of them carry out official duties. None of them represent the crown. Yet their positions remain untouched. Why? Why them, and not Harry's children? Could it be about their parentage? Could it be about Meghan? Could it be about silencing the family's most rebellious branch before their children could ever grow to challenge the narrative? The announcement didn't just shake the monarchy, it tore open old wounds. For Harry, it was déjà vu. His mother, Princess Diana, had been hounded, sidelined, and ultimately erased from the royal machine. Now, history seemed to be repeating itself through his children. And the timing? Chillingly symbolic. Just after his private meeting with Charles at Clarence House. as though the visit itself had been a cruel prelude to humiliation. A father summoned, stripped of power, and then forced to watch his children's future snatched away. The public reaction was immediate. Supporters of Harry and Meghan cried foul. Words like cruelty, vindictiveness, and betrayal filled headlines. Critics of the Sussexes, however, argued that the move was overdue, that Harry's choice to step back meant his children had forfeited their places. But behind every opinion, one truth burned bright. The announcement was unprecedented. Never before had royal children been so publicly erased while their parents still lived, still carried titles, still shared the bloodline of kings and queens. And let's not overlook the symbolism of the announcement's release. Clarence House didn't simply update a website or quietly shift names around in the line of succession. They orchestrated a press storm. They knew it would dominate headlines, dominate social media, dominate dinner table conversations. They wanted this to sting. They wanted this to be noticed. It wasn't just a correction of records. It was a declaration of war. But what about Meghan? How did she react when she saw the words splashed across every news outlet in the world? Sources claim her fury was volcanic. Doors slammed. Phones buzzed. Hollywood friends rallied around her. After years of saying titles didn't matter, this moment revealed the contradiction. Because when your children are publicly stripped, when the monarchy tells the world your bloodline is unworthy, it matters. It cuts deeper than words can say. For Harry, the pain was even sharper. Imagine carrying your daughter Lilibet in your arms, knowing she was named after the Queen herself, only to see her name erased from the very succession list her great-grandmother had once embodied. Imagine the sting of watching your son, Archie, named for the strength of independence, reduced to a footnote in history. For Harry, this wasn't just about losing titles. It was about losing recognition, legitimacy, and the dignity of his children's heritage. And yet, the monarchy defended itself with a simple refrain: non-working royals. Those 3 words were supposed to explain everything. But let's be honest, does that explanation hold water? If non-working royals like Beatrice and Eugenie remain, then clearly this wasn't about roles. It was about politics. It was about control. It was about making an example out of Harry and Meghan. The children became collateral damage in a war far bigger than themselves. Let's ask the uncomfortable question. Did Charles intend to humiliate Harry? Did he look his son in the eye, knowing the statement was about to drop, and deliberately keep silent? Or was this his way of softening the blow, pretending the reunion was personal before making the public cut? Either way, the effect was devastating. Father and son may have sat in the same room, but the decision was never up for debate. It was already signed, sealed, and waiting to be delivered. But here's where the irony twists like a knife. In stripping Archie and Lilibet, Charles may have inadvertently given them something far greater than titles. He gave them the status of victims, symbols, martyrs of the monarchy's cruelty. And once the world frames you as victims, no royal decree can erase that power. The palace may have tried to silence Harry's children, but in doing so, they may have ensured that Archie and Lilibet will forever be remembered as the ones cast out by their own grandfather. And here's the cliffhanger. Because while the world gasped at the cruelty of the announcement, another question began to rise. What justification would Charles offer? How would the palace defend itself against accusations of targeting children? The answer, when it came, was even colder than the announcement itself. The explanation came fast, but it didn't soften the blow. In fact, it made the wound deeper. Within hours of the announcement, Clarence House issued the justification that would leave jaws on the floor. Archie and Lilibet were removed from the line of succession because they are non-working royals. Cold, sterile, bureaucratic. As if 2 children could be reduced to a job description they never asked for, never applied for, never had the chance to fulfill. Think about that for a second. Non-working royals. At 3 and 5 years old, what work were Archie and Lilibet supposed to be doing? Shaking hands on palace balconies? Cutting ribbons at hospitals? Delivering speeches on behalf of charities? The excuse is absurd on its face, and yet it was presented as though it were enough to justify erasing them from history. Now here's the real contradiction. Other non-working royals remained firmly in the line. Princess Beatrice, Princess Eugenie, Zara Tindall, even Prince Andrew's daughters, despite their father's scandals, were untouched. None of them carry out royal duties. None of them represent the crown in any official capacity. And yet, their names remain safe. Why them, and not Archie and Lilibet? Why this selective enforcement? Doesn't this reveal the truth, that the decision was less about protocol and more about politics? This is where the mask slips. The justification wasn't really about roles or duties. It was about image. The monarchy is facing immense pressure, scandals, financial scrutiny, declining popularity among the young. And in their calculation, Harry and Meghan represent chaos, rebellion, Hollywood influence. To erase their children was to erase the reminder of that rebellion, to tidy up the line of succession and present a cleaner, more reliable picture of the crown's future. But at what cost? The emotional toll here is staggering. Harry, once a working royal himself, knows the rules. He understands the protocols. But to watch his children punished for choices he made, that cuts to the bone. Imagine the guilt. Imagine the helplessness. A man stripped of his titles, stripped of his place, now forced to watch the same fate fall on the next generation of his family. A cycle of erasure passed from father to child. And then there's Meghan. For years, she has publicly said she didn't care about titles, that she wanted her children to live free of royal burdens. But when this announcement landed, insiders say her reaction was volcanic. Why? Because titles aren't just words. They're symbols. They're shields of legitimacy. And to strip her children so publicly was to declare, in front of the entire world, that Archie and Lilibet don't belong, that they are outsiders, that they were never truly royal. Meghan may say titles don't matter, but humiliation? That matters. And this move humiliated her children in the eyes of history. Let's not forget the optics. Lilibet was named after the late Queen Elizabeth herself, a tribute to the monarch's most intimate nickname, a name that carried affection, continuity, legacy. To now see her name erased from the very line that Queen Elizabeth embodied, it's a brutal irony. It's as if the crown has turned its back not just on Meghan and Harry, but on Elizabeth's own memory. What would the Queen have thought? Would she have allowed her great-granddaughter, named in her honor, to be struck from succession with such cold efficiency? And Archie, his name once represented hope, a fresh start, a symbol of modern royalty embracing change. He was celebrated around the world when he was born. Headlines called him a new era for the monarchy. And now, he's been reduced to a ghost child in the royal narrative, erased from a list that once promised him a place in history. Can you imagine how Harry feels watching that transformation unfold? Pride to pain, celebration to erasure, all within 5 years. The palace's justification leaned heavily on streamlining the monarchy. They want fewer royals, more focus, less baggage. But here's the question. If the monarchy is so fragile it can't withstand 2 toddlers in its line of succession, what does that say about its future? Is this really strength? Or is it weakness disguised as discipline? Now let's widen the lens. This justification isn't just about Archie and Lilibet. It sets a precedent. If children can be struck out for being non-working royals, who's next? Will Beatrice and Eugenie one day find themselves erased? Will other branches of the family be trimmed away until only William, Kate, and their children remain? And if so, is this still a monarchy, or is it becoming a dynasty controlled by a handful of individuals? The hypocrisy is staggering. The palace insists this is about roles, yet history shows otherwise. Prince Michael of Kent, never a working royal, remained in the line for decades. Even foreign royals linked to the family through obscure bloodlines have had their places preserved. Why should Archie and Lilibet be treated differently? The answer, though unspoken, hangs heavy in the air, because they are Harry and Meghan's children, because they represent the union that the monarchy never fully embraced, because they are living reminders of the institution's cracks. But here's the dangerous gamble. By justifying the erasure in such cold, bureaucratic terms, the monarchy has stripped away the humanity of the decision. And when you strip away humanity, you invite backlash. Already, commentators are calling it cruel. Activists are labeling it discrimination. Social media is ablaze with accusations of double standards. Far from protecting the monarchy, this move may have exposed its heartlessness to the world. And so we are left with a haunting question. Was this truly about securing the crown's future, or was it a vendetta disguised as policy? The palace may think it has closed the chapter, but in reality, it has only opened a darker one. Because Meghan's fury is only beginning to simmer. And when her response finally comes, it may unleash a storm the monarchy cannot contain. Reports say Meghan's response was nothing short of volcanic. When the statement dropped, when the words were read aloud in newsrooms across the world, Meghan Markle wasn't quietly sipping tea in Montecito. No, according to insiders, she erupted. Friends describe slammed doors, frantic phone calls, and a fury that could scorch through walls. For Meghan, this wasn't just a political move. This was personal. This was an attack not just on her, not just on Harry, but on her children. And for a mother, that's a line you don't cross. Pause for a second and imagine her perspective. Meghan left the royal family in 2020, saying she wanted freedom, saying she wanted to protect Archie and later Lilibet from the harsh glare of the monarchy and the press. She insisted that titles didn't matter, that her children didn't need royal privilege to thrive. And yet, when the palace declared Archie and Lilibet erased, Meghan's fury proved what many had suspected all along. Titles may not matter to her in practice, but recognition does. Legitimacy does. Respect does. And in this moment, all of that was torn away. What's even more striking is how quickly her Hollywood circle allegedly closed ranks around her. A-listers and producers who had once courted her for her royal connection now saw an opportunity to spin the narrative. Meghan wasn't just an outsider anymore. She was a victim, a mother wronged, her children humiliated by the most powerful monarchy on earth. And in Hollywood, victimhood sells. Can you see the irony? The palace thought they were stripping Archie and Lilibet of influence, but they may have handed Meghan her greatest weapon yet, the power of sympathy. But let's not mistake her fury for mere emotion. Meghan is strategic. Friends describe her not just ranting, but planning, talking about how to frame the story, how to use her platform, how to make sure the world saw what she saw. A cold, archaic institution targeting two innocent children. Imagine the headlines she could spin. The royal family erases black children from history. Do you feel the sting of that framing? Do you see the global uproar it could unleash? And here's where things get messy. Meghan has long accused the monarchy of double standards. She said in interviews that the palace refused to grant Archie a title at birth, breaking with tradition. She claimed discussions were held about his skin color. Now, with Archie and Lilibet erased from the succession, those old accusations suddenly carry new weight. The palace may have justified the move with non-working royals, but Meghan can, and almost certainly will, paint it as proof of everything she's said from the beginning. Harry's role in this moment is equally fascinating. Insiders suggest he was devastated, shaken, even broken by the announcement. But Meghan? Meghan was energized. Her anger turned into resolve. And here lies the contradiction in their marriage. Harry wants reconciliation, Meghan wants confrontation. For Harry, the pain was deeply personal. For Meghan, it was both personal and political, and she was ready to weaponize it. Let's step into Meghan's mind for a second. She's a woman who fought her way into the spotlight, survived brutal tabloid wars, and then reinvented herself on her own terms. She knows how to tell a story. She knows how to frame a narrative. And with this announcement, the palace handed her the perfect story. The monarchy has rejected my children. Can you imagine the documentaries? The interviews? The memoirs? The Netflix scripts? Each one weaving this decision into a larger tapestry of betrayal and cruelty. And yet, beneath the strategy, there was raw pain. Meghan may be ambitious. She may be calculating. But at the heart of it all, she is a mother. To watch her children erased from royal history must have cut to the core. Reports suggest she broke down privately, weeping not just for Archie and Lilibet, but for the legacy denied to them. For the future they'll never know. Imagine telling your daughter she was named after her great-grandmother, the Queen of England herself, only to later explain that the same monarchy erased her from its succession. That is pain no strategy can fully conceal. What makes Meghan's reaction so powerful and so dangerous for the palace is that it's not just her voice. She has allies. Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey, Netflix, Spotify, celebrity activists who will amplify her words, each one capable of turning her anger into a global movement. The palace may control the royal press, but Meghan controls Hollywood. And in a media war, Hollywood's reach is far louder, far flashier, and far more sympathetic to her cause. But let's not forget the hypocrisy. Meghan once insisted she didn't care about titles. She told Oprah in 2021 that Archie didn't need one. She said freedom was more important than heritage. So why the fury now? Why the tears, the anger, the plotting? The contradiction is clear. It's easy to dismiss titles when they're denied in private. But when the monarchy publicly strips your children, it's no longer about titles. It's about humiliation. And Meghan cannot stand humiliation. The palace knew this. They anticipated her fury. But here's where it gets interesting. They were ready for it. Aides had prepared counter-narratives. They knew Meghan would lash out. They knew Hollywood would rally around her. And yet, they struck anyway. Why? Because they believe Meghan's outrage only strengthens their hand. The monarchy thrives on contrast. Every time Meghan rages, the palace plays calm. Every time she acts you. So what happens next? Meghan's fury is real. Her pain is raw. Her strategy is forming. But the palace? They've already moved to stage 2. While Meghan plots in Montecito, William steps forward in London. And his reaction to his niece and nephew's erasure was something no one expected. For once, William didn't stay silent. The heir to the throne, the man known for his calm restraint, finally broke from his usual strategy of icy distance. In the wake of Clarence House's bombshell, William made his position clear, and it sent shockwaves through both the palace and Harry's circle. Publicly, his words aligned with Charles. Privately, whispers suggest the story was far more complicated. Let's start with the public face. William appeared alongside Catherine at an engagement just days after the announcement. Cameras rolled, microphones buzzed, and reporters shouted questions. William, usually quick to brush off anything remotely controversial, paused. His words were carefully chosen. The king has acted in the best interest of the institution. That's it. Sharp, short, and loaded. A sentence that said everything without saying much at all. He was siding with Charles. He was endorsing the erasure of Archie and Lilibet. He was putting the monarchy above family. But why now? Why did William, who so often lets Charles carry the public burden, choose to speak this time? Insiders say it was about legitimacy. By publicly backing his father, William wasn't just protecting Charles. He was protecting himself. Because make no mistake, every change to the line of succession ultimately benefits him and his children. Every name erased tightens his grip on the throne. Every cut to Harry's branch secures his dynasty's future. This wasn't just loyalty. This was strategy. Now, let's dig into the private whispers. Behind closed doors, William is said to have wrestled with the decision. Some claim he argued that the monarchy couldn't afford another scandal, that striking Harry's children would invite global outrage. Others insist he was one of the strongest voices pushing for it, determined to cleanse the succession list of any potential loose ends. Which version is true? Maybe both. William is nothing if not calculating. He can express caution in private, then project unity in public. He knows appearances matter more than the messy truth. But here's the contradiction. William's endorsement may strengthen his father, but it risks destroying whatever fragments remain of his bond with Harry. Think back to Diana. She wanted her sons united. She wanted them to lean on each other when the crown became heavy. And yet here we are, William standing firmly with Charles, Harry watching in disbelief as his brother effectively consents to his children being erased. Can you feel the fracture widening? Can you hear Diana's ghost echoing with disappointment? The emotional weight here is enormous. William has always been the dutiful one, the golden boy groomed for kingship. Harry was the rebel, the spare, the free spirit. And now, when the monarchy faced a choice between inclusion and exclusion, William chose exclusion. It's a decision that cements his role as the crown's protector, but at the cost of his role as a brother. Was it worth it? Time will tell. And Catherine, don't overlook her role. She stood beside William during his carefully crafted comments, her expression unreadable, her posture impeccable. But sources close to her suggest she advised caution, warning William that appearing too harsh toward Harry's children could backfire. She knows the world sees her as a mother first. And she knows that, in the public eye, a mother siding against two small children risks turning sympathy away from the palace. But William? William chose duty over sentiment. So let's ask the hard question. Was William truly protecting the monarchy? Or was he settling an old score? Remember the Oprah interview? Remember Spare? Remember Harry's brutal words about his brother's temper, his wife, His complicity? Could William have seen this as an opportunity to reassert dominance, to show Harry once and for all who holds the power? Or was he simply playing his part in a larger royal strategy, sacrificing his relationship with Harry to shield the crown from chaos? One thing is certain, William's public support gave Charles the credibility he needed. Without William's backing, the move could have looked like the desperate act of a fragile king. With it, the decision became a united front, a father and son in lockstep, a monarchy presenting strength. But strength can be a mask, and masks crack. Because behind the polished statements and rehearsed appearances, another storm was brewing. Harry, devastated by his children's erasure, wasn't content to sulk in silence. While William and Charles were shoring up the monarchy, Harry was preparing something else entirely, something that could upend the palace's carefully orchestrated narrative. And when Harry finally made his move, it wasn't just personal, it was explosive. For Harry, this wasn't just another blow from the firm. This was annihilation. The announcement didn't just strip his children from the line of succession. It stripped him of the last thread of connection tying him to the crown. Imagine the torment. The son of a king, the brother of the heir, forced to watch his own children erased from history like they were mistakes that needed correcting. For Harry, it wasn't politics. It wasn't protocol. It was personal. Eyewitnesses describe him leaving Clarence House with a face of stone. No words to the press, no flashes of the easy grin he once wore so naturally. His shoulders hunched, his fists clenched, his jaw tight. It was the image of a man gutted from within, trying desperately to contain the storm roaring inside him. Sources close to him say he was inconsolable once behind closed doors, his voice cracking as he asked the question no father should ever have to ask, "Why my children?" But Harry is Diana's son, and Diana taught him one lesson that has never left him. When the palace strikes, you fight back. That fire, buried beneath grief, began to flicker. While Charles and William wrapped themselves in the armor of tradition, Harry started to consider his counterplay. And make no mistake, he has weapons. One of the first moves whispered about in his circle? Legal consultation. That's right. Rumors suggest Harry has already reached out to lawyers in both the UK and the US to explore whether a royal decree of this magnitude could even stand under constitutional scrutiny. Can a monarch simply erase children from the line of succession at will? What about parliamentary oversight? What about international law, given that Archie and Lilibet are American citizens? Could their dual nationality complicate matters? It sounds far-fetched, but Harry has money, connections, and fury enough to test the boundaries. And then there's the citizenship card. Some insiders claim Harry, in the heat of anger, has been mulling over a shocking option, renouncing his UK citizenship and embracing his life in America fully and legally. Imagine that symbolism. The son of King Charles, the grandson of Queen Elizabeth, turning his back on Britain forever. Would it sever the monarchy's credibility in the modern world, or would it cement his freedom once and for all? But here's where things get interesting. Harry isn't just a wounded father. He's a global celebrity with a platform that reaches millions. The memoir Spare was just the beginning. Imagine a second book, a sequel, detailing how the monarchy not only rejected him but erased his children. Imagine the interviews. Oprah, Netflix, Spotify specials, each one weaving a narrative of cruelty, betrayal, and injustice. Can you feel the pressure building? The palace certainly can. And yet, even as he contemplates his next moves, Harry is haunted by guilt. After all, wasn't it his decision to leave? Wasn't it his choice to step away, to reject the institution, to live in California? Friends say he's been tormented by the thought that his children are paying the price for his rebellion. That Archie and Lilibet are victims of choices they never made. Guilt can crush a man, but it can also fuel vengeance. So what does he do? Does he wage a public war, unleashing his fury on camera? Or does he bide his time, playing the long game, waiting for the crown's next misstep before striking? That's the tension tearing Harry apart. One part of him wants peace, reconciliation, some shred of family unity. But another part, the part that still bleeds from his mother's death, from years of tabloid cruelty, from feeling like the spare, wants nothing more than to burn it all down. And here's the chilling twist. Insiders suggest Harry has already begun drafting a plan that could shake the monarchy to its core. A plan not just to defend his children's dignity, but to expose the entire machinery behind their erasure. Names, memos, emails, leaks. What if Harry decides to open the vault, to show the world exactly how the decision was plotted weeks in advance? Imagine the fallout. Imagine the monarchy scrambling as its secrets are laid bare for all to see. But before Harry could even decide on his counterattack, another bombshell hit. The announcement didn't just erase names. It redrew the very shape of the monarchy. And when the new line of succession was revealed, the world gasped at what it meant. Because with Archie and Lilibet gone, the crown's future looked very different. And the beneficiaries of this erasure? They were far closer to the throne than anyone expected. With two names erased, the royal line shifted like tectonic plates beneath a fragile monarchy. Archie and Lilibet's removal wasn't just a symbolic cut. It reshaped the order of succession in a way that no one could ignore. Overnight, the balance of power tilted, and those who once lingered in the shadows suddenly found themselves one step closer to the throne. The palace updated its official website within hours. Where Archie and Lilibet once sat, their names neatly slotted behind Harry's, there was now only a void. The list jumped seamlessly from Prince Harry to Prince Andrew, as though those children had never existed at all. Cold, clean, surgical, and with that single deletion, the monarchy had quietly redrawn its future. Now let's examine what this new order means. With Archie and Lilibet gone, William's children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, stand even more firmly as the unquestioned future of the monarchy. No competition, no potential rival branches, just one clean, streamlined line of succession flowing directly from Charles to William to George. For William, it's the perfect consolidation of power. His dynasty is secured, his children's path unobstructed. But look beyond the Cambridge children, and the implications grow darker. Next in line after Harry is Prince Andrew. Yes, Andrew, the disgraced Duke of York, who was stripped of his titles and shunned from public duties after his association with Jeffrey Epstein. With Archie and Lilibet erased, Andrew is technically one step closer to the throne. How's that for irony? The palace claimed it wanted to protect the monarchy's image, yet this decision inadvertently elevated one of its most controversial members. Doesn't that reveal the hypocrisy at the heart of this move? And then there's Beatrice and Eugenie, Andrew's daughters. With Archie and Lilibet gone, they too have climbed higher in the order. These young women, often overlooked, now stand closer than ever to the crown. And the question must be asked, did Charles and William realize that by erasing Harry's children, they were strengthening Andrew's bloodline? Or was this a calculated risk they were willing to take, believing Andrew's line poses no real threat compared to Meghan and Harry's? Let's take a step back and look at history. This isn't the first time names have been scrubbed from royal succession. In centuries past, entire heirs were erased due to illegitimacy, religion, or politics. Catholic heirs were cut out during the Glorious Revolution. Edward VIII's line vanished after his abdication. History shows us one thing. When the monarchy feels threatened, it will rewrite its future to survive. And Archie and Lilibet? They just became the latest casualties of this ruthless tradition. Now, here's where the symbolism gets brutal. The monarchy has always been a story told through bloodlines, through continuity. And yet, by erasing Archie and Lilibet, the crown essentially declared, not all bloodlines are equal. Can you feel the sting of that? Two children, grandchildren of the reigning king, pushed aside as though their blood runs thinner, less worthy, less royal. It's not just exclusion. It's a public branding, a scar that will follow them for the rest of their lives. And what about the Queen's legacy? Elizabeth II always presented herself as the matriarch who embraced family, who kept the line of succession intact through thick and thin. Lilibet was even named after her. How bitterly ironic that the name she gave her great-granddaughter is now tied to erasure. Would the late Queen have allowed this? Or has Charles, in his attempt to assert strength, betrayed her legacy? The new order of succession also raises troubling questions for the monarchy's future. If Charles and William are willing to erase Harry's children today, who might be next tomorrow? Could other non-working royals find themselves quietly dropped in the years ahead? Will the list one day be trimmed down to nothing more than William, George, Charlotte, and Louis? And if so, what happens when the monarchy becomes so insular so stripped of extended family, that it loses the very sense of continuity it claims to defend? But here's the paradox. By removing Archie and Lilibet, the monarchy may have made them more powerful than ever. Because absence speaks louder than presence. Their erasure makes them symbols. Ghost royals. Children the world will never forget precisely because the palace tried to make them disappear. They are now, in a strange way, immortalized, not through crowns or titles, but through controversy. And Harry knows it. He knows his children have been turned into symbols of rejection. And he knows that symbols can be more dangerous to the monarchy than heirs ever could be. Because once the world sees you as a victim, no amount of protocol can erase that image. Archie and Lilibet may be gone from the list, but they will live forever in the story. But what if the palace didn't act out of cruelty alone? What if there was another reason, hidden beneath the surface, for why Charles struck now? Whispers are already circulating that this wasn't just about Archie and Lilibet, it was about the monarchy's survival. About a fear so deep, so consuming, that Charles felt he had no choice but to sacrifice his grandchildren. And when you hear the hidden motive, you'll understand why this move wasn't just ruthless, it was desperate. Was this really about two small children, or was it about saving the monarchy itself from collapse? That's the question that haunts every whisper coming out of Clarence's house. Because behind the cold language of non-working royals lies something darker, something far more revealing. Charles didn't simply strike Archie and Lilibet's names from the line of succession out of principle. He did it out of fear. Fear that the monarchy, in its current fragile state, could not survive the shadow of Meghan and Harry's legacy looming over its future. Let's peel back the curtain. Charles has always been a man obsessed with legacy. He waited 70 years for the crown, enduring scandals, ridicule, and decades of being seen as the eternal heir. Now that he finally wears it, he's watching the monarchy buckle under pressure, financial scrutiny, declining relevance among young people, and constant competition with the glitter of Hollywood. For him, Archie and Lilibet aren't just grandchildren. They are symbols. Symbols of a narrative he cannot control. Symbols of a family branch that defected and thrived without the crown. And symbols, as history shows, can destroy kingdoms. Think about it. Harry and Meghan walked away, and yet their story still commands headlines across the globe. Their interviews draw millions. Their Netflix specials trend worldwide. Their memoirs outsell royal biographies by staggering margins. They are the monarchy's greatest export in years, and the monarchy doesn't even own their brand. To Charles, that's terrifying. Because if Archie and Lilibet remained in the line, even symbolically, they tethered the crown to California. They linked the Windsor dynasty to Montecito mansions, Hollywood premieres, and Netflix deals. And that, in Charles's calculation, was a poison the monarchy could not afford. But here's the brutal irony. By trying to protect the monarchy, Charles may have revealed just how weak it has become. Strong institutions don't erase toddlers from their succession lists. Strong monarchies don't fear children who can barely spell their own names. The very act of erasure screams fragility. It screams desperation. And desperation, in the world of power, is blood in the water. Behind the scenes, aides whisper of mounting pressure. Parliament is restless. Questions about royal funding are louder than ever. Scandals, from Andrew's disgrace to Charles's rumored health struggles, have chipped away at public trust. And younger generations, surveys show, care less and less about the crown. Charles knows this. William knows this. And so the strategy emerged: streamline, consolidate, cut the fat. Erase anything that could threaten the survival of the institution. Archie and Lilibet weren't victims of oversight. They were sacrifices. And what of Camilla? Her role here cannot be ignored. As queen consort, she has fought tooth and nail to secure her place in history. To her, Harry and Meghan are irritants, reminders of Diana's shadow, reminders of the chaos that nearly derailed Charles's path to the throne. Removing Archie and Lilibet, palace insiders whisper, wasn't just about strengthening the monarchy. It was about cleansing it, clearing away any traces of what Meghan represented: modernity, rebellion, diversity, and independence. Do you see the pattern? It's less about children and more about optics. Optics of control, optics of purity, optics of power. Now let's confront the contradiction. If this was truly about survival, why take such a brutal step so publicly? Why not quietly adjust the line, bury it in royal archives, and let the world move on? Because Charles needed to send a message. To Meghan, to Harry, to the world. That message? The monarchy bends to no one. It was less about policy and more about theater. A performance of strength at a time when the monarchy feels weaker than ever. But here's the danger of playing theater with real lives. Audiences don't always react the way you expect. The palace may have envisioned headlines of discipline and unity. Instead, they got outrage, pity for Harry's children, and renewed debates about whether the monarchy has any place in the 21st century. Charles wanted to secure survival. But did he just hasten decline? Because look closely at the backlash. Social media didn't rally to the palace's defense. Commentators didn't applaud the streamlining. Instead, hashtags trended accusing the monarchy of cruelty. Columnists wrote about ghost royals. And across the Atlantic, Meghan's Hollywood allies began sharpening their knives, ready to flip this decision into proof of the monarchy's cold, archaic heart. And here's where the story takes its darkest turn. If Charles truly acted out of fear, if this was a desperate gambit to protect the monarchy, then erasing Archie and Lilibet isn't tea.